Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with us today for this new team webinar, our 7th webinar. My name is Andrea and I'm International Development Manager for Aware. So today our guest speaker is Andrea Giunta, based in Buenos Aires. So this webinar is organized by Aware and will be moderated by Maura Riley from Arizona, where it's quite early, and I apologize for organizing this webinar so early, Maura. So Maura, you will introduce Andrea. But I just want to mention that both of you are feminist curators, art critics, professors. So as I said, Maura, you're teaching at the Arizona State University. You wrote a very famous book on curatorial activism, and you're also working on a textbook in English on feminist art, among many other books and projects. So before I give you the floor, before we start the webinar, I just want to give a few technical information for the audience. So you've noticed that the audio is muted, except for our panelists. You will have the opportunity to participate and interact with us via text in the Q&A. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. Maura will share them with Andrea. We will have time for a discussion at the end of Andrea's presentation. Please also know that the webinar will be recorded and available on our website. You can already have a look to the past webinars. I will put the link to the videos in the chat, so you can check our page on the website. And also, I just want to say, maybe there are new ones in the audience. I will say a few words about our organization, about Aware, and then Maura will present also our team program, because Maura, you're the head of our academic international program. So Aware stands for Archives of Women Artists, Research and Exhibitions. It's a French nonprofit organization co-founded in 2014 by Camille Morinot, a French art historian and specialist in the history of women artists. Among many other exhibitions, she curated the exhibition The Show Elle at Centre Pompidou in 2009. So our goal as an organization is to produce information and spread this information on women artists, both from the 19th century and the 20th century, especially through our website, which welcomes more than 50,000 visitors a month. Sometimes 60,000, and you can find on our website around 800 biographies of women artists, a lot of research papers, podcasts, cartoons for children, and a lot of information and news about upcoming exhibition on women artists. So our organization is based in Paris, but we have an international scope. We collaborate with major museums, universities, research centers, both in France and abroad. And our action also relies on public fundings, donation from private sponsors, foundations, and companies. So this was about Aware, and now Maura, at the head of team, I let you present this program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anais. So I just want to tell you a little bit about TEAM. TEAM stands for Teaching, E-Learning, Agency, and Mentoring. And as Anais mentioned, it's an international academic program that we launched last year. It's dedicated primarily to the production and sharing of knowledge about women artists across the world. And its main purpose is to enrich Aware's online sort of encyclopedia of women artists. We are giving priority to geographic areas that are still underrepresented at the moment. Because we think that, if we want to write a more inclusive history of art, we have to consider not only gender issues, but also cultural and geographical and intersectional issues. So the second aim of TEAM is to support the training of a new generation of art historians who will be aware of gender issues and place women artists in the history of art. So finally, TEAM is a network of solidarity and transnational reflection on the issues shared by these art historians in the network. To date, we have 14 members and 65 students who are writing biographical entries. They're mainly master's and doctorate students, and whose research covers 5 continents. And these webinars are part of this program. They're part of the team program. And the idea is to allow you to meet our amazing team members and to give them the opportunity to share their research. We will also be introducing non-team members into the webinars. And I think the next webinar, we might have one in November, but just mark your calendars that on December 7th, Amelia Jones will be presenting a webinar for you. So let me turn now to introduce Andrea Giunta, who is an Argentinian writer, professor, and curator. She is one of the best known feminists in Latin America, so I'm particularly thrilled that she's joining us today. She received her PhD at Buenos Aires University. She is teaching there as a professor of Latin American and contemporary art. She is a principal researcher on CONICET, previously held the chair in Latin American art and criticism at the University of Texas at Austin. And she was the founding director there of the Center for Latin American Visual Studies. She's the author of several books on Latin American art and international art. I wanted to ask Anais, can I put into the chat the list of all of her books? Will I be allowed to do that? Great. There are so many. I would like to share these with you right now in the chat so that you can look them up. Hold on one second. Yeah, there we go. The one I'm most excited about is the first, which is Feminism in Latin American Art, Histories of Art that Emancipate the Body, I think is my terrible translation from Spanish, but that is forthcoming in English from University of California Press. So everybody please buy that when it comes out. It's going to be hugely important. Andrea has been awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship, the Harrington Fellowship at the University of Texas at Austin. She was appointed the Tinker Visiting Professor at Columbia University. Since 2014, she's part of the Academic and Artistic Advisory Committee of Malba Museum, which is in Buenos Aires. She was a co-curator of Verbo America Malba in 2016, and most importantly, at least for today's discussion, Radical Women, Latin American Art from 1960 to 1985, which some of you might have seen either at the Hammer Museum at UCLA, Brooklyn Museum, or as I saw it at the Pinacoteca in Sao Paulo, Brazil. She also curated the Biennial 12, which was in Porto Alegre in 2020. And many, many other exhibitions, and we will be hearing about 4 of them today. So that's a very short biography for someone who has had a very distinguished, extensive career. We will learn more about that, I'm sure, in the moments that follow. But before, further ado, let me hand it off to Andrea. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maura. Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you very much to Aware program, which I know from several years, whoever that is looking for information on feminist art all over the world, Aware Archives appears fastly. And then it's a privilege to be part of the team that Maura is leading together with Camille. And what I want to present today, it's my last very short, in a way, experience curating 4 exhibitions centered on Latin American and international feminist art. I want to mention something that it was important for me to be aware of, that is that I am not just working for making well-known artists in an act of justice, working for the recognition of many artists. I am also working for the right of the audience to know these extraordinary works, the kind of systemic censorship that exists in art that naturalize that important art is art made by male artists, white and middle upper class usually, has as a consequence that we as audience, we don't have the opportunity to see the works of many artists. And then it's also the right of the audiences to know more. And it's also the strong belief I have in the emancipatory power of art, in terms that allows us to be aware of many things. And in that way, I think that the emancipatory power of art should be amplified and should be presented. That's why I work finally, I think, on these projects, for artists to be better known and for the audiences to have the right to know these extraordinary works. Then I will present my talk with a PowerPoint. It is a little bit extensive, and I hope I will be able to show all the images. Otherwise, I will go fast on some of them, and probably all these contents will be developed in my next book. Then the question I proposed to Anne was the following, could exhibitions transform feminist cartographies of Latin American art? Then this is a question I make in some way in these 4 exhibitions. The first, Radical Women, that was in 2017, opening at the Hammer Museum, and ended in Pinacoteca de Sao Paulo. The exhibition opened when Donald Trump went into power and ended when Jair Bolsonaro went into power. And I underline that because it has been strong information for the context of reception of this exhibition. Then immediately I was invited to present a project for the 12th Biennial in Porto Alegre, Brazil. And then I expanded the scope. I was not in the need to follow a chronological frame. I have more freedom, and even not a geographical frame. That's why in the Biennial there are artists from several countries, not just from Latin America. And 2020, Rethinking Everything, that it was an exhibition I was preparing since 2019 on feminisms, but from a different perspective. I will talk a little bit about that when the exhibition comes in the PowerPoint and when the world changes that is still installed in Buenos Aires. And Rethinking Everything is in the space Van Gogh, in the Rencontre de la Photographie in Arles in this moment, going in November to Paris. These are some questions I want to make like provisional questions. Is it still necessary to do exhibitions of female artists in Latin American art? What are the strategies we can follow for exhibitions to transform the state of the art world? Can exhibitions transform feminist cartographies of Latin American art? Are overlap in some ways these questions, but are the questions that I am doing myself all the time when doing these projects. When we presented Radical Women to a group of colleagues from Latin America, curators, friends from a long time, it was surprising for Cecilia and for me to receive so many objections, particularly one that said, oh, this is not a necessary exhibition anymore because women have been already recognized. This was a problem in the past, but not in the present. Then, following the example of Maura Reilly that published this article with percentages, a little bit before that the article appeared in 2012 at the University of Texas in a graduate seminar I was teaching, we were working with all the catalogs of Latin American exhibitions made between 2000 and 2010 in order to see if it was true that already women artists had been recognized, because between 2000 and 2010, we are talking about contemporary time. And this was the result. then not different of the results that Maura got working on exhibitions in Europe and in the States. And then with who was still my student, not my student, a student, now is a graduated colleague and curator, Belén Colucho, we began to make this research on one institution, a central institution in Argentina, to see what it was happening in Argentina. Then it's the National Saloon. We explored between 1911, when it was created, to 2015-16, when we were developing the research. And then this is the result of all the most important awards given by this saloon. Just 4 were given to women artists until 2015. Analyzing the saloon in its long history in different categories, we can see that in painting is where women got these prizes, sculpture, which are better represented women, and prints, better represented, ceramics, and the only category where women are predominant is textile. It was important to make these graphics because I was publishing through Facebook, and it was interesting how many times I was attacked. Even it was said that I was not telling the truth, that I was lying. And then every time I received comments like, yes, this is possible in painting, but not in printing. In prints, women are predominant. Then I have a graphic to show that it was not true, no? And even in 2016, when it was already installed, the debate about the low representation of women, when we analyze all the awards in all the categories, still male artists were predominant. Well, it's no different than the research that the Guerrilla Girls developed with humor, comparing the situation between 1985 2015. Then it's not that we were doing an original research, but there are a lot of precedents and colleagues, both scholars and artists, that have been working on these issues of non-representation, low representation. Well, 2017, this is a view of radical women in the Hammer Museum. Just to mention that we're represented 15 countries, 117 artists. The exhibition was organized in topics: self-portrait, body landscape, performing the body, mapping the body, resistant and fair, the power of words, feminisms, social places, the erotic. The themes were emerging from the works of art, were not themes that we conceived before. And here you have a map of the Brooklyn Museum, where it was installed around the dinner party, the central iconic work that Maura has the pleasure of installing at the Brooklyn Museum for the first and definitive time. And you can see, here all the topics, how we're organized at the Brooklyn Museum. Also to say that the catalog has a completely different concept. It was very historical. Then we have essays about each country, trying to reconstruct the specificity, the historicity, the map in which these works were acting and were received and were produced, and a view of Hammer Museum installation. You will see that we make a proposal in topics, but the concept of installation was always following the principle that all these works could be in another theme. Then it's a lot of transparency. We are here. This is the theme of power of words, but also you can see works of resistance and fair, or here on feminisms. Then this transparency, it's very important in the exhibition, and I think that the place where it was better exhibit, or the layout was more clear in this, from this perspective, was at the Hammer Museum. Body landscape, portrait, and here in portrait at the beginning was this touching work by Victoria Santa Cruz, but from here you can see also body landscape, performing the body, and you can see also how the devices for the layout were working all the time with this idea of fluency, air circulation, and mapping the body. But from mapping the body, you can see resistance and fear in this work by a Chilean artist, the erotic. But also from the erotic, you can see at the end a work of resistance and fear. Then this visual connection was acting all the time. No, from here, this is the space of feminisms, but you can see resistance and fear, and you can see the power of words. And from here, resistance and fear, you can see the erotic at the end, the power of words. Then it was very important, this fluency, no, in order to show the coexistence of all these experiences, poetics, times, countries. Some conclusions. It is impossible to present all the exhibition here, but I will present some conclusions. First, the exhibition allowed to recover some works that were almost destroyed, like the Margot Romer from Venezuela. To recover also the videos and photographic archive by Maria Evelia Marmolejo. I will never forget the first time we saw her photos in New York, and she has a small booklet. And now she was able to recover in Colombia the original videos, archives, and it is possible to have a vision of her work. Or the reconstruction of the installation and performance in 1983 by Nelvia Romero in Uruguay, that it took 2 years for me to make the reconstruction of this work. Also, another conclusion is that many of these artists were in exile or were in prison and were tortured, like in Uruguay, like Cecilia Vicunea from Chile, Marcia Schwartz from Argentina, that was in exile in Spain, Maria Evelia Marmolejo. All these artists had to live outside of their country during the dictatorships. Also that Latin American women should include Chicano artists and experiences of violence against her own body in Los Angeles hospital. Also another conclusion of the exhibition is that even if the exhibition was objected for including just women and with preconceptions that it will involve necessarily a biological perspective, many works are exploring intersectional perspectives and a non-fluent concept of sexuality. Like, for example, the series that Pasarrasuris did in a travesti prostíbulo in Santiago de Chile, or these experiences of Ana Mendieta performing gender, or also performing gender, this video by Licia Pape, a queer close-up on these words, eat me, and these lips, and the piece of a brilliant form inside of the mouth, or also the queer perception of maternity, performance queerizing maternity by the Colectivo Polvo de Gallina Negra in Mexico, also Maris Bustamante performing her sexuality and with the devices and sexual elements, and also introducing in their works, like also Ana Maria Maiolino in Brazil, the psychoanalytic discourse, Freudian and Lacanian. And also it were in the exhibition, even if it's something that I felt completely in depth or unable to introduce clearly in the exhibition, was Grace, with this performance by Victoria Santa Cruz from Peru. That is a work that was reported or informed to us by Miguel Lopez, that was part of the advisory committee of the exhibition. Also issues that has to do with the representation of Aboriginal Latin Americans, and here an experience of photographies and archive made by Claudia Andujar, living with the Yanomamis. Then this is a very important topic today, the agency, the presence, the representation of artists connected with Aboriginal population in Latin America, that are hundreds of languages, beliefs, and communities in Latin America. Then there were so missing things in Radical Women that when the possibility to curate the biennial came, it were for me, the moment to review all these aspects, But of course it was crossed for the circumstances. I always say that an exhibition is what you plan, what you think to do, and what happened. How the context is changing determines even the content of the exhibition, the final content. And then in this case, we have to deal with the context of isolation and make a decision to go from a physical biennial into a digital biennial. And also the agency that at the beginning was focused on democracy in a confrontative context, opened by the arrival to power of Jair Bolsonaro, then in the original concept of the biennial, for us, democracy was a key word, and became as a key word the word of isolation and effects. This is the curatorial team. Igor Simoes, that is the second, is a curator and researcher from Porto Alegre, whose work I knew. She's making research online, and was articulating at that moment when I began to plan the biennial, a project with the title Black Voices in the White Cube. And Dorota Bixel is a scholar specialized in Peruvian art, also in Ecuadorian art and art from the East countries. Fabiana Lopez is a specialist in Afro-Brazilian art, Afro-Latin American art, and African art. Then it was very important for me to have in the team scholars specialized on the topics I wanted to explore and, as a curator, learn about. Then the title of the biennial, Femmes, with this S in between brackets, Visualities, Action, Effects, was based in some way also the perspective on the text of Denise Ferreira da Silva, because we really wanted to include in the concept of democratic culture representation of Afro-Latin American artists, completely absent in Latin American art until then, until 2003, more or less, with a very low visuality, And the concept, but how to show Afro-Latin American artists without percentages. We have, of course, a clear idea about what was the percentage of Afro and Afro-Latin American artists included in the exhibition, but we decided not to mention to anybody. because we worked with the concept of Denise Ferreira da Silva of how to deal with difference understood as multiplicity and not like separation. And then, well, we were considering to go over exclusive binary logics of gender, race, and class, participation from the concept of difference, and also to understand the biennial as a place where it will be happening, a sensitive contract, a place for exchange of visualities, actions, and affects that will allow to confirm the richness of democratic life without avoiding its complexity. And this last aspect was planned for the square. The square is the heart of the city. It's Porto Alegre is not an Airbnb city. Porto Alegre Mercosur Bienal is not an Airbnb bienal. It's very much fed by the local population. And then these were the institutions where the bienal will be happening. And this is a map to show, you know, the connection between Porto Alegre and the Atlantic, which is called the Black Atlantic, or could be called the Red Atlantic for all the blood that was involved in the process of the slavery since 16th century. Then here you have the countries represented, 25, and more than 70 artists, because it were a lot of collectives. Well, here it was important to have the faces of the artists when we went into the digital version, because we knew that we will not have the possibility to meet and to make a decision. You know, the close down came on March the 20th. We have artists already in Porto Alegre producing some works that it was urgent to convince the authorities of the biennial to send them back to their countries. Otherwise, they will stay for 6 months in Brazil. And to make the decision to cancel the physical biennial and to move into the biennial online. We had still the idea that in October 2021, we will be able to open the physical biennial, but exploring, reading, researching, I have the certainty that it will not happen, that the pandemic will be longer. Then we put all our energy on the digital version that you can still find online with all the photographies, all the works, all the videos, and all the editorial program that was very large. It was very important, the educational program, and the opening was represented by a teaser or trailer of the biennial, and it was central in the online project, the depoimentos, or testimonies that were sent by artists from isolation, and are around 60 deployment testimonies. And I think that this is a singular and exceptional archive of affects during isolation. What means to curate a biennial in pandemic and isolation, then when the global spectacle of art becomes a care of persons and programs. And I, as the chief curator, I felt a lot of responsibilities. First, to take care of the team working in the biennial, which involved more than 30 people, that if we were not able to articulate the plan or the project for the biennial online, will be without a job immediately, as it happened in many corporative museums in the United States, that immediately when the close down came, canceled the contracts, particularly of the educational teams. Take care of the artists' works and resources. We pay the fee to the 70 artists, and this was a strong decision and not easy to convince the foundation that it should be done. And in a time when artists market was canceled, and many artists didn't have the possibility to teach in their workshops, and then didn't have income, it was very important for them to receive the fee for participating in the biennial. Take care of the moving from the real space to the screens, to work with teams that were designing a site that was not prepared for hold, for storage, so much information. And take care, and this was very important, of the existence of the educational program. And the educational program was a core also of the digital biennial. Of course, there are pending questions. What did we lose with this moving from the space to the digital? What did we win? And for me, this is the most important question. Do we want to return to the state of the world that we left in March 2020? Well, my answer is no, but it's happening. Then to show some works, areas in the exhibition that were focused on activism, this is important because it has to do with the activism for the legalization of abortion that it happened on December the 30th, 2020 in Argentina. And then these are some pictures of urban activism, and also a work of an artist about the way and the devices that poor women use to produce themselves abortion, no? And many of them die. Then also a work of art focus on femicides made by the Argentine artist Fatima Pechicaro, with a portrait of all women assassinated between 2014-16. And she makes the portraits, and what she do with the images is to change the eyes direction. Then all of them are looking to the audience. Also, another important thing that came completely surprising and fascinating for me was how important was all over Latin America and the Americas, and also in Africa, the topic of the black hair, no? Like, well, this a video by Lorraine O'Grady, where it's like a landscape of hair. And also this critical piece by Priscila Rezende, an artist from Brazil, that she make a performance with the title Bombril. Bombril is the label of a device for cleaning the dishes, and is the way in which it's called the hair of Brazilian, Afro-Brazilian women. And then in the public square, she washed the dishes with her own hair. And also Elo Samboy, of course, in the biennial we included in not just women, artists identified with a fluid sexuality, heterosexual men. It was much more wider, the spectrum of the biennial. For example, this work by the Brazilian artist Elo Samboy, where her mother is taking care of his hair, and at the same time during hours telling him stories about his family. Now, then this connection with the hair as a cultural object, as a cultural image, is very powerful in many artists. Like, for example, also Hosanna Paulino, she collected hair of different friends. She write the name of them, and she placed them in this kind of scientific devices, like an observatory. And it's an artist that also treated in her work very much the notion of Red Atlantic, no? In connection with slavery, in connection with colonization, with death, exploitation, and erasing the subjectivities of millions of Africans that were moved to Brazil during 4 centuries of slavery. It was one of the last countries to abolish slavery in 1888. And racism exists in Brazil. This is a work by Alene Mota, another Brazilian artist that made a trip to Nigeria and had the experience of feeling white in Nigeria, black in Brazil, and explores all her history, her family album, and her family history of slavery and rape in a very touching video. But also an artist from Zimbabwe, Dana Wabira, that went to Porto Alegre to work with communities and scholars that were exploring the history of emancipation in what is called the quilombos in Porto Alegre, in the areas of slavery where slaves escaped and were establishing independent territories. Then she had contact with all these researchers. She was when in March the 20 in Porto Alegre, and after she condensed all this information in an abstract drawing that was not down, no? Or Janina Barros, no, that she danced in different parts of Sao Paulo city. I danced in the ground in which I stepped, and when she finished the dance, she take out the shoes, and then she makes a close-up to her feet, and then she makes evident this idea of what is your territory, what is your place, your geography, the place where she dances, where she moves, the place she touches. Another Afro-Caribbean artist, Shoiri Minasha, no, that makes an analysis of the cliches that represent the Caribbean woman. She makes this big mural, but at the end, in a performance, she makes wet her clothes and she erased the mural with her own body, inverting in a way strategies of Yves Klein, for example, when he was using the body of women, no, for making his works. Here, Shoiri is using her body. It was also the work of a Mapuche artist, which is a Mapuche Indian community in the south of Argentina and Chile, Sebastián Calfuqueo, with the work researching the experience of Mapuche community coming from the south of Chile to Santiago de Chile. And he also explores his identity, his sexual identity, no, looking for someone, a woman, that is his double and allows him to explore his feminine side without transforming, without a transsexual practice, and exploring the questions coming from that, no? And also Tzotzil from Chiapas, Mexico, artist Maruch Santis Gomez, who since the 90s is developing this fabulous series collecting statements that has to do with the knowledge and experience of her community, Tzotzil community, and she produced photos, very singular photographies, kind of connection, no? It's not an illustration, but it's a connection between the statements and these objects, enigmatic many times, conceptual. Also, the activism of J. Mombasa, a Brazilian, very decolonial artist that also exhibits his fluid sexuality, he, she, him, her, non-binary sexuality, and also non-normative body. No, that is we want to propose a dialogue with a collective in Argentina called Public Women, with this work with words, where they question the use of the word queer as a foreigner word, very much connected with a level of education, and international experiences that are not necessarily open for common women, all fat, black, poor, that are not identified with this word. Also a work of a Chilean artist. It's a performance she made using her own body in front of the Justice Palace, in front of the cathedral, and in front of the Museum of Art in Concepcion, Chilean city. No, of course, all these actions ended with the police. No, because it's nudity that is not allowed in the public space. And probably this was the most touching part of the biennial, when we asked artists through a letter, how are you during the isolation? Where are you? What are you doing? You know, tell us your experiences, let us know. But the responses to the letter were so emotional that we proposed them, wherever they were, to record with a cell phone, small tape, telling that where they were during the isolation, what they were doing, and what it was the work that they were planning to exhibit in the physical biennial. I invite you to look for this archive because it's very emotional, and it was produced 10 days after the isolation began. And the educational program, no, that it was work with 1,600 teachers that were inscribed in the online aulas courses that were planned by Igor Simoes, the educative curator, and that were focused on these propositions, no, the place, how many women artists you know, you are known as a woman or you become a woman, what is the relationship between humans and nature, you know, trans artists, the place of fabrics, no, and you know, the connection with the hair, and invitation to the audience to curate its own biennial inside of the digital base, activisms, violence against women, issues connected with immigration and with colonialism. Then it were these cards with activities, not for making online, and these are some of these cards. And it was a book published. These are the publications that are all online. And then it's a journal with the words of the artist, an international seminar that was planned to happen in Porto Alegre, and it didn't, unfortunately, but we published with more than 50 works, the catalog and the publication about the educational program. And all these things, and it is important because we felt so critical about the state of the world that we decided from the beginning that we will not be printing, spending paper that after is accumulated in the reserves of the biennial for years, and that also contribute to the state of the world. I was thinking a lot on the state of the world. It happened already before, no? But I was invited by a gallery to create an exhibition on feminisms. And I said, well, really, I would like the title. The title I want to use is Pensar todo de nuevo, rethinking everything, because I think that feminism is finally that, is the proposal to rethink everything, your relationships with the world, with the animals, with the spices, care, domesticity, house, and the isolation came. And it was like we were already working on a display of all these strategies proposed by works of Latin American artists. And then we decided to let out the title Feminism and to use this title, thinking about everything again. Then this is like a resume of the text that was longer, the curatorial statement, no, very much located in present time. Here and now, we are traversing an unrepresentable pandemic time, strange time, testing the very concept of humanity. We can rethink everything. Feminism is a rhythmatic theory and practice that also addresses questions of the post-human and production of the common, a theory of affection and the body of the public affair, the transformation of social relationships, and of the home as an observatory for the analysis of a new economic policy of life, a feminism that merges with a profound questioning of the contemporary consequences of global capitalism and that emerge to observe notions of community, the breakdown of anthropocenic models and human exceptionalism. We want to rethink with an attentive eye latent meanings in artworks made in other contexts. Each object, each photograph, each film in this exhibition generates a magnetic field that creates friction with everything that approaches it. Each one provides material from which to rethink possible forms of the world. Then it's a good synthesis of how new feelings were crossing this isolation, global isolation, and how feminism was already providing a lot of tools for thinking on this new situation. The artists are all from Latin America. It were organized a lot of Zoom conversations. It was published a book by Delpire and Co. in Paris in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish in separate editions. And here are some works, you know, you have here 2 works by from 1993 in Argentina, Graciela Sacco posters, heliographic posters, and Liliana Maresca performances with all these political images, international political images that both were installing in the public space. Graciela Sacco in the streets and Liliana Maresca in an area of the city where the devastation of hundreds of buildings during the dictatorship, the remains of these buildings were deposited in the Rio de la Plata border. And there she put the images in which she was performing nude.
Andrea, I just want to give you your 10-minute warning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. I am almost ending. Then I will go fast on these works. This Florencia Levy is a work she did about the consequences of extractivism in China. It's a work she was imprisoned for making this photography. Then you can find the film about what happened with her, but it was a very deep reflection about the consequences of extractivism. Or performances like Shoiri Minasha reflecting on the basis of colonial structures in Dominican Republic, no, with these objects that she merged in coffee and sugar, the elements that condense the exploitation of colonial exploitation of Dominican country. And Aline Mota, work we already saw, working with the mirrors. And the last project, it's a short presentation because in some way it was the opportunity to present artists of the biennial that I was not able to present in the space in Porto Alegre in Buenos Aires in the Cultural Center Kirchner. Then when the work changes, it's an exhibition online and it's an exhibition on space. That is still installed, that reflects also on the consequences of our relationship with the world, the presence of mestizo communities. This is another work by Sebastián Calfuqueo, where he posed in the same way that an indigenous woman was photographed in 19th century and produced this friction on his body and sexuality. Esther Ferrer with this extraordinary work on her own Portrait on Time. She began in the 80s, and probably the most shocking work was this with the chairs that she proposed for the first time in 2016 about genocide, femicides in Spain, and then she remade in Buenos Aires. If you look at this, when the exhibition opened in March, there were 62 femicides in Argentina, then 62 chairs that were in one exhibition space. And you can see here that this exhibition space was empty, just with the Portrait on Time, but this is the exhibition today, 214 chairs, and all the exhibition space full of chairs. Then also we exhibit her work on the intimate and personal, where she also works on the right of a very old woman to perform nude. She was born in 1937, and this performance was in 2012. And also participatory work with feminist questions, inviting the audience to answer these questions. And this was in July, the state of this room and work, and this is the state today, no? Then, and these are the questions. We can't read the questions now, but there are several questions about the situation of women artists in the world. No? Inviting the audience to make a choice, then writing the number of the question and answering. The work of an Uruguayan artist about affections and sexuality and attraction for the others, according how it's represented by people blind since they were born. Then it's a long experience she did, and focus on that, on affects, which is a very important section on feminist studies. And also by Shoiri Minaya, the video we already saw, Siboney, but also this Dominican women Google search, where she makes an exploration about the results of Google when you write Dominican women. And then from there, she planned this installation. And finally, the possibility to install Aline Mota for the first time in its definitive shape, with the articulation of the trilogy, because really are 3 videos in the space, and making visible all her meditation on memory of the slavery, family memory, and a very strong and diverse agenda in Latin American art that is being explored recently more and more and more. We can't say today that there are not Afro-Latin American artists. There are a lot, and it's still a task to be able to let the audiences know about the radical strategies, about their poetics, about the topics, about an extraordinary place of knowledge on Latin American art. Then, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. An amazing presentation.
I know.
Exactly on time.
It's exactly on time. That was incredible. Thank you so much, Andrea. I was madly taking notes, so I just want to know that what you've done is so extraordinary, and the exhibitions are really mind-blowing. I've already gone online and ordered Rethink Everything, so so I'm excited to read that as well. I loved learning about just these artists that are new to me. I mean, Esther Ferrer and her Femicide is one of the most incredible works I've heard about in a long time. And Aline Mota, Nicola Costantino, Sebastian Calfuqueo. I mean, You know, all of these artists, I'm really excited to learn about. I'm sure others are as well. And I want to thank you for your generosity and the work that you do. I did have a few questions, and I'm encouraging others to ask them in the chat as well. I haven't seen any yet, but hopefully some will come. I'm really interested in curious about the answers that you might have received for the preguntas, for the feminist questions, because I'm wondering about institutional awareness of gender equities in Argentina. Like, it was so interesting what you said about the National Salon statistics and how when you posted them on Facebook, you were attacked. I mean, you know, like I find that my statistics that I publish are generally met with anger and suspicion, mostly anger. There's a kind of cognitive dissonance that things are still horrible for women. They're horrible. So there's this kind of cognitive dissonance. And I just wondered about the preguntas and the answers you got from the general public, and just a general sense of institutional awareness of gender inequities. So thanks for that.
Well, I will say that the graphics we were producing with Belén were incredibly effective. I was publishing in Facebook, and then I was receiving a lot of comments of support, of course, you know, particularly women. Yes, this is the reality, we know. And negative comments saying like, this is not true, which is difficult because I am a scholar from CONICET, what means the National Council of Research. Then I am not a curator, I am a scholar researcher of the state. Then I work with methodology, with hypotheses. I make field research. It's not an opinion, you know, it was a very long work on time to go through all these catalogs to elaborate these small graphics. And then it's very confronting that they say, this is not true, you are lying. And even the director of the institution of the National Salon sent me an email telling me, you are lying. I will use my right to sustain a different perspective. The information you are using is not the correct. And in the mail was include a lot of information that then I know that he didn't compilate because it was a different typo, but even so, it was confirming my graphics. Then I said to him, well, write what you want, I will answer to you. And of course, I am in touch with a lot of journalists. Then I said, well, if you know that he will write, I want to have the right to answer in the same publication, you know, for the audience to have a possibility to confront. Then the reactions were really very, very aggressive. But at the same time, it was changing a lot. And even in the platform, the rules for participating in the salon, they add an article that said the salon will have equal representation in acceptance, in juries, and in awards. And this show, I think, that is very radical internationally.
Amazing.
But it is. At the same time, everybody takes care today, you know, even if are not rules for everything. And of course, I don't want that. I don't want rules, you know. I want that that organizers and audience are interested on knowing what non-traditional or not established artists are doing, you know, and particularly women that are excluded but represent more than half of the population of the country. Like Afro-Brazilian population is more than 50% of Brazilian population, but when you go into art, the percentage is minimum. Then what they are doing, they want to participate in the world of art. Then what is happening in Argentina now is that things changed a lot. We learn a lot. I am part of an activist group, and we learn a lot how not to be, how not to use punishment as a strategy, how to produce a dialogue, how to, you know, to deal with cancellation, which is a very problematic topic. And then, we are always exploring strategies in order to get the possibility for Argentinian audiences to know better what is happening in artistic culture.
Yeah, but I actually believe as a feminist in public shaming, that's why I do my statistics and look at the results of it. Like you're getting real life results from an institution offering to make change. I know that from people that I know who work at MoMA. I have spent my career shaming MoMA and their statistics and their permanent collections. And, in my taking the measure of sexism, I definitely called them out. I've heard they've had internal discussions about the statistics, and they're actually working to change because that was published widely and people were very upset. So I believe so wholeheartedly in statistics. And, it's interesting that you say that as an activist. You don't want to, put people in that place, but I just have seen the positive results when one does so. But anyway, I still want to hear about the answers to the preguntas. I mean, those are such provocative questions. And like, were you preaching to the converted? Were the people in the audience feminists, so they kind of knew how to answer? Or were you also reaching people that, they were very provocative and tough questions for them? Just kind of curious.
Can you repeat? Because I was reading a question in the side, but I was lost. I thought that you were reading the question and after, no. Tell me again, please.
Oh, yeah. So we'll definitely go to that. I was just curious about the answers to those provocative questions that you posted on the wall, which is such a brilliant idea.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I was curious. Yeah, I was curious about the answers.
Well, it's nothing definitive about spaces, context, audiences. Really, I was looking at the answers there and are positive, are going in the way we think it should go, not someone writing, oh, this is a lie, this doesn't exist, I don't take care, or it's not important. What is important is the quality of art, or all these other common answers. No, the answers are very committed, committed in a way. I want to write something that is important. Also participative, because you find a lot of drawings by children. Then it talks a lot, who is looking at this work, how the audience can be introduced and participative, even if it's not in a rational, literal way, all the things which we play a lot with that, because we make a stationary station, with a tape of different colors, brailles, and marks, pens with different colors. We invited to enjoy the situation also, right. No? Because pleasure is part of feminism, is one feminist strategy. Yeah. Pleasure of our body also, no? Then positive and beautiful, to come and to see that people is doing incredible things. This is always what happens with audiences, that they make unexpected things. Then they are sticking in the floor, in the doors. One work is overlapped with the other. We don't know anymore in a Sterferer exhibition where begins and ends each work. Yeah. Because it's a complete involvement of one work with the other. It's incredible.
Question, and I'll tell you, Esther, that's actually a question that really angers me for many reasons. And I'm hoping that Andrea will have a good answer for it so that she can dissipate some of the anger I have.
No, it doesn't anger me at all. Because,
it does me, so go ahead.
No, at all, because
maybe just read it for the audience.
Yeah. So what can you say about the limits of the term woman artists when working on discriminations based on gender identities? When do you think it's relevant, and when do you think it could be considered outdated? When, of course, I don't think it should be outdated, but anyway, go ahead.
No, I am not angry, because I have to confront these questions all the time. And the answer I have is that feminism is not just one thing, it's not just one agenda, some things could be outdated in a specific context, in specific circumstances, but not in others. If you look at what was the agenda of feminism of second wave? No, well, one of the issues was the legalization of abortion. If you look at the map of Latin America, you can say that we are still in the second wave. Then being an activist helped me a lot, because I have to confront everything with the reality, with what is happening. One thing is the theory, another thing is the reality. Then I have to elaborate responses covering both things all the time. And then if I agree with the idea, with the perspective that feminism is not just reflecting on biological feminine bodies, it's much more complex and includes gender perspectives that has to do in one sense with the cultural construction of sexuality, and not with the essentialist biological definition of sexuality. But one aspect is not invalidating others. It's a coexistence of multiple problematics. Yeah. And this is what Agreed. I will say, it's my position, and when I teach, I will say, take care not to create a model of evolution, a normative model of evolution concerning feminism. Feminism is multiple, are many feminisms, are redefined in a specific context, in a specific time, in specific communities, change according to circumstances. And then it has to play with theory all the time to avoid limitations. Then what I will say is women artists is still part of the feminist agenda, but it's not the single agenda. It's coexist with many other agendas. Then the problem of outdated or not, I think that what is outdated and what is not outdated. Right. What is science? When we are in the state of the world we are, what we can say about progress, how we can use these models of evolution and from this notion to talk about outdated or what it should be discussed today when we are working on feminism, that is a theory able to analyze and reflect on so different fields that has to do with biology, has to do with identity, has to do with nature, has to do with care, affects, economies, indigenous organizations, resistance, ways to resist from another ways of representing the world, the strategies of extractionist economies, you know, how other communities connect with the earth, how other communities connect with water. This is part of the present in Latin America, is not the past. And feminism, there is an indigenous feminism that is powerfully resisting the introduction of international capitals for extracting minerals, for extracting oil, for erasing forests, for installing plantations. Then that is part of the reality, and this is feminism. Feminism is not just on the books of theory that said which is the most updated theory on feminism. Then what I always try to do and teach to my students is never close your mind, try to observe the reality and try to establish a productive dialogue with theory, not a relationship with theory that determine the way you will look to the reality.
Right. I agree with you. I think the implication though with questions like that, and what annoys me, is when people say there's no longer a need for women artists exhibitions and they question the definition of woman. and they begin to query whether or not it's important to have shows that still focus on women. And they really don't, they really query, again, the fundamental definition of women. And of course, they're bringing in ideas about like trans people and, you know, all of these things that complicate the definition of woman. And so for me, I think one of the questions you started out with, which I loved, is there still the need for women artists exhibitions? And again, the implication is that there's a, you know, kind of biologically essentialist. And, you know, but again, I guess that's, I'd love to hear your answer to that. Because I think that's what they're problematizing a lot of,
well,
and it's always the younger generation. It's not our generation that asks these questions. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I open to that, you know. In the biennial, I exhibit heterosexual men that, from my point of view, were developing a feminist program.
Right,
Why?
right.
They can be producing a feminist work of art. And
Agreed.
This has to do with my perception as a curator and not with his identification, but
right.
An artist that is working on recovering the pictures of women at the Bauhaus. This is a feminist work. This
right.
is something
I agree.
that. And then I am much more, I am not close, but of course, when you make an exhibition, you have to have a frame and then to see what happened with that. And this is what is fascinating on exhibitions, because the next one, you can do something completely different. I want to answer Nancy Deffenbach. Yes, Nancy, it has been published. It's one of the publications of the biennial, number 12. We wrote to all the participants that were in the publication, and if it's for some reason your work was not in the publication, I will check what happened. But yeah, because of course we can make mistakes, and whatever mistake I said sorry now, but we can make mistakes in this unbelievable moment we went through, trying to put together everything, but probably were things that were wrong. But I will check. The publication is online in the publications of the biennial, and I hope it is there. I don't remember now, but
Nancy, that sounds like an incredible essay against the canon art feminism, and that I really want to read that. So thank you for sharing. That sounds like wonderful essay. That's great.
You will not receive a copy, Nancy, because we didn't print it. We make just digital publications. And this was based on a political decision of not to contribute to the devastation of the planet, printing in this very expensive paper, and even in publications that after the organization of the events has not money to send by mail. And in a moment that we don't know if we will be able to receive by mail as it was before in March 2020. I am in Argentina. I don't receive things through mail so easily anymore.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think another feminist issue is the climate crisis and the devastation that, you know, publications and even art travel and biennials and, you know, all of the carbon footprint that we leave behind. I hope that museums and institutions and curators will begin to rethink a lot of those really urgent, again, very devastating questions. So I like that. I'm taking inspiration from you that, you know, we should really just do digital publications from here on out. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, well, the last meeting at the ECOM in April, their conclusions, they said that 30% of museums, world museums, will not survive to this crisis. Blockbuster exhibitions, it's a model that I don't think that it will be reborn easily. It's still, it's not clear, no, what it will happen. We are able now to visualize that is a return to normality. I can say that it was at the beginning the hope that humans had the possibility to reflect on the state of the world and to make something to change it. And what we are seeing is that that humans didn't learn. Then I am not optimistic. I am very pessimistic. I'm sorry. But even so, you know, you have to continue trying to change. Yeah. I don't want to participate curating a blockbuster exhibition, for example. This is a personal decision. Another personal decision is that I will travel just once a year, getting a plane. I will not be traveling, you know, 13, 14 times a year. Then these are personal political decisions. And as far as I can make it, it's okay. But
okay, well, we have no more questions for you. And I want to thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and expertise and the brilliance of your exhibitions with us all today. Anais, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Sorry, I just had one question because you were talking about ecology and ecofeminism. I was really interested in Florencia Levy's work. I didn't know, and I was reading that Tierra de Ciervos is a work a photograph she took in China, and she got arrested for this artwork. Did she produce any similar work in Latin America? I don't know, in Argentina or somewhere, because I mean, extractivism is not only an environmental contamination is not only an issue in China, but also, I mean, in many countries. And I know that extractivism is a concept that is really much more known and used in Latin America than any other part of the world. So I was wondering.
Well, really, she was doing a residence in China. Then she has another work about contamination in Beijing. No, I have to think if she has another work, but definitely there are other artists that are working on the consequences. In different ways. For example, an artist that lives in Paris, she's from Argentina, Julieta Anono. She works with the Quam community, and the Quam community is from the Chaco, the forest in Argentina that has been, it's been eradicated, no, through fire, through different strategies to take all these people out that are now living around a city, Rosario City. Then there are many ways to go into that topics, no? Because she works with the Quam, then she works on this idea of nature devastation, how nature or connection with nature by Quam indigenous is recreated in the urban context of desolation and marginalization, no? Then, there are many artists working on. Monica Milian is working on these issues of the Mesopotamia forest in different ways. She worked on that, no, on the richness and eradication of this nature. It's our artist collective, Errorism, that works on the consequences of the pesticides that are used in these plantations that produce cancer in a big part of the population.
Right. Wonderful.
Cecilia Vicuña, that for the biennial proposed quipus called Amazonia, and based on what it was happening in Brazil at the same time in 2020, and how many areas of the Amazonia were in fire.
Yeah, I know that there are more and more artists, and not only women artists, working on this issue. But I really like what you and Maura said, that I mean, being a feminist and activist curator today is also about considering these issues within the process of production of exhibitions and and considering traveling and everything
Yeah.
in our own professional practice. I think it's
I know
even more important. I mean, if we want artists to keep, I mean, if we want them, we want artists to give them the opportunity to keep creating. We have to protect the environment first and take this important aspect of producing exhibitions.
Yeah, and I wonder what will happen as we move forward with international exhibitions like the Biennial and Documenta, like these massive, you know, where we're coming from hundreds of countries and the damage that we're doing to the, you know, as far as the large carbon footprint. I wonder if that will impact how we curate, you know, whether we do more regional shows or I haven't really thought it through. I mean, Andrea, do you ever think about those things? Yeah.
No, I am always thinking from feminism, and because the agenda of feminism in Argentina includes all these topics, and it's strong activism, and Mapuche women are developing a lot of resistance to the fracking, for example. Then it's part of our present. No, then I don't need to think about artists other places of the world, but I think that it will be interesting, no, particularly because things are not going well. Then if it's something we can do from other areas in order to expand the knowledge on that issues, it will be great.
Yeah. Well, I think Anais, Andrea, and I should put together a huge ecofeminism show because we clearly are hugely passionate about this. So
yeah, we should.
it's very important.
Well, and the Centro Cultural Kirchner is an exhibition now by another curator that is exploring this issue of nature and you know, based a lot on Donna Haraway, anti-speciesism perspectives, and well, of course, Anthropocene debate, post-human positions. No, all these issues are very much connected.
Absolutely.
With the perspectives
it may be surprising, but the most important part of the carbon footprint of an exhibition is the audience coming to the exhibition.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about mobility. And if you have blockbusters and international exhibitions, you have a lot of international audience going to your show. Yeah. So, and even if you have a very small percentage of international audience, then your carbon footprint can be twice bigger, just because of 2 or 3% of your audience coming by plane. Yeah. So yeah, it's an important issue of how we can keep sharing art and ideas.
Yeah.
Well,
Andrea, thank you for including that in this important theme in your work in the exhibitions amidst all the others that you're you know putting forth as critical urgent issues. Well, thank you again for sharing your scholarship and your research with us. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
There is a comment by Amalia Caputo. As much as we would take personal and professional decisions that would be aligned with our ecofeminist thought, I believe the big market will not consider the carbon footprint.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. I don't think
we are confronting pessimism always. I always say that I get used to lose the battles, but even so, I keep going on, you know, otherwise, unfortunately, yes, but even so, we can do something, we can do things. And I think, and probably this is something I didn't mention, but I think that the most compelling area for us to work in the coming next years is education through art. Why? Because art, it's not scientific methodology that has to prove anything. And then the connections between ideas that could be produced in art act as a laboratory of ideas. And in this moment, really, we need ideas that allows us to jump the immediately conclusions about devastation or hope, or, you know, then I think that to learn about whatever, to use whatever we learn during isolation in terms of, for example, international communication, exchange, should be analyzed in connection with education. No, I think it's a huge field there still to be explored. That if we don't want that this last year and a half is just an empty time, we can go back to whatever we learned during this time in order to think about the immediate future. Then this Absolutely. Is something why I think we need art, and we need to clarify agendas for transformations, potential transformations.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Enjoy the country.
Yes.
Thank you, and see you next month with Patricia Mayayo from the Universidad Autónoma of Madrid. She's our next guest in November.
Okay,
and
thank
you, Maura, and please stay tuned, and we will upload the video as soon as possible on our website. I put the link on in the chat.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.